Okay, so the rowing machine. Rowing machine is an absolutely incredible tool, and this is going to be a how-to video on how to approach a rowing machine, assuming you've never even seen one before. Okay, so to get things started, you'll want to have the handle or the paddle in what's called the holster. It's this little thing here. Okay, and then the screen facing you. We won't get into any screen stuff in this video specifically. And then the damper setting, I like to start people off with the damper all the way down on 1. Okay, so all the way to the bottom. The foot pads. So if you'll notice the foot pad, you can lift it up and then move it up and down like this. You'll want to have the foot pad in a position to where your toes are not over the foot rest, okay? So meaning I wouldn't want my feet all the way up here to where I could do this. My foot should be locked into position with my toes flush with the top of the footrest, okay? And then for me, that's gonna be a 3, and then for every person, that'll be a little bit different. I also start people off without utilizing the straps. And there's a lot of reasons for doing the rower, or for adjusting the damper setting to a 1 and the lack of foot straps. That's gonna help you feel the drive phase a little bit more, okay? So once you got everything set up there, I actually start people off without utilizing the arms. So what we do is we just work on getting set up and sliding forward. So you want your hamstrings just on the seat. So a lot of times when people sit on the rower, they slump back like this. Instead, you want to roll your pelvis until you're setting up nice and tall and your hammies are touching the seat there. I also want to keep my heels on the pad, so I don't want to lift up and then go this far forward. I want my heels down and then the chest nice and tall. From here, I like to have people just go in and out a few times and feel the hamstrings curling and pulling yourself forward until you run out of range of motion of your ankles. So you'll go forward until your shins are about vertical for most people. If you're a little tight, you'll be a little far back, and that's okay. But what I don't want is the heels to lift up, and then in this you'll start to feel your quads really engage to get there. So instead what you want to do is just utilize the hamstring to go forward and backward. Okay, from there, once people feel this, I have them do some air pulls. Okay, so what's going to happen when we do begin to row on the rower, we're going to be using the paddle obviously, but there is a cadence that has to happen, a sequence of events, and I like to have people practice that without the use of the paddle to start. It gives them less to think about. So what we do is we start here, and this is called the catch position, okay? And what we'll do is we'll extend our arms back, we'll lean our torso, and then we'll row until our thumbs hit about sternum level, okay? This is gonna be the finish position of our drive phase. So this phase is called the drive phase. Here's the catch, a drive, and then we get to the recovery phase. So for the recovery phase, to initiate that, I extend my arms, I sit forward, I get my torso back upright, and then I curl those hamstrings. I go forward until the heels almost lift, and then I extend my legs, lean with my body, row with my arms, extend my arms, get my body upright, and then return with my legs. So that's the recovery phase. So here's the drive, legs, body, arms, arms, body, legs. Legs, body, arms, arms, body, legs. Once you have this down to where you can do it without having to think about it, usually for most people 2 to 3 minutes of practice to that, they can then begin utilizing the paddle. Now, one important characteristic of the paddle usage in the drive phase is it mimics being on the water. So if I'm on the water and I do a stroke in the water, say I dig my paddle in and I do this. If I too quickly reset before the fan goes down, it would be as if I was on the water, I'm coasting forward, and I put my paddle in. It's actually going to create drag and slow me down. So it is important that after the drive phase, after I do my pull, I allow the fan to slow back down, okay? Keep in mind, this is called the recovery phase. So you're meant to recover during this phase. and relax. It's not the drive phase. No work is being done. I'm not going to gain any meters by returning very quickly. Most rowing intervals, most rowing workouts in most places will have a faster drive cadence and then a minimum of a 2-to-1 recovery cadence, typically. Okay? Now, the reason for not having your feet locked in, when I go to drive on the rower, I want to drive as the rower handle is passing over my knees. So I'm not going very fast in the very beginning, and I'm not going really fast at the end. If I did that, I would fall off the rower because my feet aren't strapped in. So instead, as this paddle is passing over my knees, is when I'm going to really try to get that fan moving then. You can probably hear the sound. The loudest sound comes as it passes over my knee. That's going to be really important for getting the appropriate bite out of the rower to get it moving, rather than starting a bit soon or a bit late, okay? Now, as someone practices that, and they get to where they can get a very consistent sound out of the rower, they're getting that perfect sound out of the fan, then we can strap our feet in and we can up the damper setting. Damper setting never I shouldn't say never, for majority of rowing type workouts, 5 is gonna be an appropriate damper setting or less. And we're speaking specifically like if you're just doing rowing intervals, or if you're doing, say, a Metcon, a CrossFit Metcon, you would want to stay around 5. And then if you really want to nerd out and get into the specifics of the rower intervals on the rower, and then we could really talk about how to utilize the damper in those different interval settings. But for most people in the very beginning, keeping it around 5 or less is going to be good. So that was a little intro into the rower. So hopefully if you've never done any rowing, never even seen a rower, you can utilize this video and start rowing.